Into live, I guess. It is live now.
Yes. Okay.
It is live now. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
So you can go ahead.
Hi, hi
I hope
Tanushri.
you are all doing well. We are here to discuss books that are really, really exciting to read during the winters. I don't know how much of winter it is at every place, but Pune is almost over winter. So, without any ado, I will now introduce the panelists Nazneen Kachwala,
Hi.
Purnesh Bhattacharya, and Sudipta Saha.
Hi.
And I am Tanushri Podder, and we'll be discussing books that interest us and some of the recommendations that have come in from others. So I begin with Nazneen. And to begin with, I would like to ask you, what are your thoughts about winter reads? What kind of books do you like to read during the winter?
So, Tanushri, I would, answer your question. Firstly, thank you for the question, but I'll answer the question with a short poem written by Robert Frost. It says, "The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has give my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rue." So this is exactly the feeling of winter that it brings along with us. And having said that, winter is a time when we all, somewhere want to be tucked into the blankets. And I personally would like to go into a cafe, find a warm corner, sit alongside a glass window, and enjoy the whole vibe that is going on there. When you see the couples coming closer to each other, also there's a slow mist in the air always, and the atmosphere, the winter night sky is magical. So all these things, the beautiful picture that the nature paints for all of us during winter, it definitely influences the books that I pick to read during this particular time. So if I talk of the genres that I prefer to read during this time, it's like more of the I'd like to go back and read some of the classics. I'd some beautifully written memoirs, folk tales, why not, or fairy tales for that matter. So these are the things that come along with the winter reads for me personally.
What about you, Purnesh? What are your thoughts?
For about winter retreat, I would say I am a kind of person who goes very much like this line of Arundhati Roy from The God of Small Things. She says he explained to them that history was like an old house at night with all the lamps lit and ancestors whispering inside. So when I think of a winter retreat, for me, winter retreat has to be at a place which is quite secluded, and I'm surrounded by at least 4 to 5 books, wherein I prefer reading very personal stories. So one of the very personal stories, I would just mention one name, was Karl of Nosgard. His first book in his series of 6 books was one, A Death in the Family. So I remember reading it at Dharamshala, and at Dharamshala, I usually go to a place wherein nobody actually visits that place. The Tibetan monks, they have their homes on the upper corner of it. I guess it is called Dharamkot or something. So I stay there, and every time I have been there, almost for the last 3 years, I have been going there just before winter sets in, or the winter is about to depart from the regular seasonal change that is going to take care about it. So I kind of read very personal stories of how certain experiences have changed people, and how they have evolved in their day-to-day life. And most of the books that I have read as a part of my winter vacations are based on the lives of writers. So either it is Karl of Nosgard, or it is Vishwanath Ghosh, whom I had met personally last year during the book fair, and I was also invited to his place. And there are books which are like as good as my experiments with truth of Gandhiji. So every time I have gone for a winter retreat, I have chosen a book which is of a very personal nature. And as far as winter retreat is concerned, for me, I love staying in that particular home wherein you have a small cradle. You can just swing along. You can look at the nature out there, and you can listen to the breeze when it just touches you and hugs you gently, and you turn the next page for the next story. So that is my idea of a winter retreat.
Sudipta, what is your take on the kind of books that you would like to read during the winter season?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Actually, for me, winter is the season when basically darkness grows, the cold surrounds us, and the world sinks from the sight. And it is basically when we take a book and we curl up and spend a cozy winter night reading it, imagining it, and specifically grabbing some hot coffee or tea, and then some wonderful read during this winter can be some short stories by Ruskin Bond. If the short stories are some horror stories, then uh, it is the most wonderful thing that we could read if you're not scared of horror stories. Then comes some fantasy fiction when you look into the Harry Potter books, or the Game of Thrones series, or the Witcher series, the Lord of the Rings series, or even some romance when you could think of like some Winter by Alice Smith, then books by John Green, Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, and also Stephen Chbosky's Perks of Being a Wallflower. So for me, winter is all about some kinds of entertaining fiction, which we could curl up with it on the bed or in the armchair, grab a cup of hot coffee, and start reading it. And that's how we would enjoy the winter, feel each and every scene that would that would provide us with the touch of that chill, provide us with the touch of that warmth, even in romance fiction and all.
That's very nice. In fact, for me, winter read means, having something which is so exciting that you can sit in a cozy corner or wrapped up in a blanket and have a cup of steaming cup of tea, and probably read something very exciting, either a classic or a murder mystery or probably a horror book. So that's my idea of winter read. Now coming back to Nazneen, what is your favorite genre? Does it really attract you during the winter too, or do you have some special genre of books which you like to read during the winter?
So Tanushri, my favorite genre, if you ask, I'm more of a non-fiction person. I would, definitely pick a non-fiction book over a fiction book, and my reads are always staggered. So if there is a non-fiction that I'm picking, then just to relax a bit, I would squeeze in a fiction in between. But right now, you just mentioned about murder mysteries and something very thrilling and exciting. That again would make a very good winter read, according to me. And Tanushri, I can recall that you have written some really good murder mysteries. If I can, talk a little about them. So you've written a novel called A Closet Full of Skeletons. So the entire, the picture that you have painted with the beautiful metaphors, and the title itself says this is about a murder mystery, a girl who is at the peak of her career, an actress who is at the peak of her career. She plans to, suddenly call it off and live a life with the retired people in the Himalayan setup, and a very simple life. Again, then suddenly she plans to call up the men from her past to her birthday party, her 40th birthday party, and then she decides to publish. She gives in a pitch that she's surely going to publish a book that is like a tell-all memoir of hers, and then it stirs a lot of fear in the crowd because all the ex-lovers are somewhere, associated. They have somewhere done wrong to her, and apart from this entire murder mystery plot, the winter, the feeling of the winter that you have brought in to this book. I remember that when Ramola is the protagonist, when she is walking down the street, she's wearing the hood and tucking her hands in the in the warmth of her coat, and she's going to a tea stall to get her brew. So this entire feeling, I think this murder mystery would definitely work well as a winter read. The second book of yours only I'd probably recommend to read is Before You Breathe. Again, this is a murder mystery set in the Himalayas again, and wherein you have written beautifully about the picture that you have painted again. I can recall that you have written that um, when the sun rays came down, the snow-clad mountains were lit on fire. I mean, that is a wonderful. It's so poetic and it's written so well. So there are a few things that you've written, though it is a murder mystery, but then there is a beauty of the winters that you bring into these books. So I would like to, talk about these two books. Definitely are would make a good winter read.
Thank you, Nazneen. In fact, I created that kind of scenario because I thought a murder mystery, whenever it comes to the mind, you always think of misty mountains and, cold winter and things like that. So this is basically a Himalayan town, and
Yeah.
the feel of all those things comes through very clearly. Uh, coming to Purnesh, what do you think? Which kind of genre would you prefer to read during the winter? Purnesh?
Punish, you're
Uh,
muted.
yeah,
Yeah, can you
yeah,
hear me now? I'm so sorry.
yeah. Now we
By
can hear
mistake.
you.
So
Right, right.
my favorite genre first is travel, and the second is advertising, because a lot of things happen in the advertising scenario as well as on the travel scenario. So as far as travel writing is concerned, I am a huge fan of Bishwanath Ghosh. The latest book during winter which I read was Aimless in Banaras, wherein why I would say Aimless in Banaras is I would read out from the book. I had marked the passage wherein he said. So in Banaras, where thousands come each day to seek answers to life's say square puzzles, you realize that life isn't a puzzle after all. It is pretty much a straight line, starting with birth and ending with death. I think so. These are the kind of paragraphs or words which kind of paint a picture of that place. I have never been to Banaras, but after reading that particular passage, I know that I would definitely want to be at Banaras, and I would want to visit those places where he had been to and the kind of things that he had done. So that is one of the books that I'm talking about as far as the travel genre is concerned. And I'm a stickler. I have been a sucker of his books as it comes to the travel genre. Coming to the advertising genre, I would like to present this something which is written by my the favorite man from advertising, who is Piyush Pandey, Pandemonium, wherein he says, whenever you feel that you are lacking the essence of creating a story for advertising or a campaign, he writes a beautiful line wherein it says, look back at life, there are stories hidden there. So he's just trying to tell you, you don't have to keep on researching things, you don't have to keep on going here and there, you just have to go back to your life, look at what stories you have left unattended there, and you can create your next campaign. So these are the two books that I can talk about right now.
And Sudipta, what about you? Any
Uh,
favorite genre from winter?
Yes, my favorite genre I have is and that is fantasy fiction. Okay, because uh, this is one of the first favorite genres, and the second genre I have favorite in me is that some kind of thriller, mystery, thriller and mystery mixed with each other. That kind of genre. But fantasy fiction, in the sense that I love to imagine things when I read books. Okay, and the most wonderful imagination, I think, for me comes from if I read the fantasy fiction, whatever it is, the yeah, fantasy fiction, the Harry Potter series. And also if I if suppose in the fantasy fiction genre, if I bring out some classics like some Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, then also the Game of Thrones series, the Witcher series. So these fantasy fiction, when I'm reading it during the winter time, first of all, it provides me with lots of entertainment. And second of all, it provides me with a huge kind of imagination. Like, suppose, what if I am getting the chill when the author is describing a winter scene, or a scene of a scene with dragons, scene with wizards and witches? What would happen if I am seeing that in front of my eyes? So I basically kind of like imagining those kinds of things. And secondly, when I come to the thriller or mystery portion, it is a kind of it is a kind of feeling that would put me on the edge of my seat, that what will happen now, this what will happen now, that what I look forward in a work of thriller or mystery that I am reading. So for me, basically these two genres attract me the most. And apart from that, I like reading romances. I like reading the plays of William Shakespeare, where specifically I would be mentioning two plays later on in the discussion. I like reading science fiction novels, science fiction. And also, apart from that, one of the other most important genre that I like reading, plus I like academically analyzing the genre, that is the detective fiction. The detective fiction, we have seen, we have also many kinds of detective fiction in Bengali, also in Indian detective fiction. And apart from that, we have all those Sherlock Holmes, the Agatha Christie series. So all of these detective fiction, fantasy fiction, murder mystery, thriller, romances, all these books attract me during the winter a lot. And not only winter, rather throughout the whole year, it attracts me a lot.
Thank you, Sudipta. Actually, as per you all, I would love to, point out that I have, sometimes some book leaves a, indelible mark on your mind, and one of them is Doctor Zhivago. It
Yes.
is so striking. The winter in that book, throughout, whether it is, the snow through which they have to go, or, the communist regime and things like that, it was just too good. And one could just not, forget winter after reading that. The other one I thought, which was very striking to my mind, was Little Women. And there is this Christmas scene in which, the March family, which by itself is not very rich, has, somehow put together a very celebratory breakfast. And they hear about the Hummel family and the little kids who are cold, and, they have no food, and they all decide to sacrifice their own breakfast, give it away to the Hummels, and they come back feeling that warmth of, charity in them, which by itself I thought was a very great thing, the way it has been brought out. So such books are likely to, remain in the mind forever. And like you mentioned, A Christmas Carol, that's another one. If I may mention here, when Charles Dickens wrote this, it was in 1843, and he had, just brought it out. Within no time it sold, and by 1844, within a year, there were 13 editions, and it became one of the bestsellers. And till date, people enjoy reading it during the Christmas time. These are, books which will never get outdated. So I feel, the classics have such an important role to play in whatever season you want to describe. And of course, The Murder on Orient Express is unforgettable. Agatha Christie at her best, I think. Okay, coming back to Nazneen, would you continue recommending some other books?
Right. So, as I said, I'm a more of a non-fiction person, and I also like to read a lot of astrophysics. Now, before I go to astrophysics, I just mention a bit about the clear winter sky, and I do a lot of sky watching during this time. And one person who has, inculcated this interest of sky watching in me is Stephen Hawking. So I would firstly like to recommend this book. It's Stephen Brief Answers to Big Question by Stephen Hawking. And this book is not only for the people who are into science students or who know a little bit of science, but it is for everybody because it answers the questions that all of us probably have been thinking of since the time when we learn to think. So it just briefly answers questions in a scientific way, of course. And Stephen has also talked of, he's been satirical, he's been humorous, he's included some of the good conversations and discussions with the greatest minds that have lived on this planet, which I think is not worth a miss. And he talks about, is there a god, how did it all began, can we predict the future, is there another intelligent life in the universe, will we survive on the earth, should we colonize space, is time travel possible? So all these questions are very, very intriguing for me, and I think it is also going to be very intriguing for other readers also. So I would definitely recommend reading Stephen Hawking's book. One important thing, that this is his last book, and he could not complete this book. His daughter happened to complete the book after he passed away, taking references of all the notes and other research material that he had prepared. Second book that I would recommend for winter is like I'm a fan of short stories. Again, this is not a fiction, but by reading this book, it would give you a feel of fiction. This is called Days in the Life of a Sufi by Raziuddin Akil. Now, I have been, visiting shrines, Sufi shrines with my parents, grandparents, but I have, not known the stories of the saints that lay there. So this particular book talks about the very rich texture that the Sufis and the Indian Sufis and Sufism added to the diverse fabric of our culture. And I have also been a student of yoga for some time now, and I feel that there is a striking similarity between the two philosophies, the yogic philosophy and the Sufi philosophy. Now, this book is like, it has got 101 short stories, like one page, two-page short stories, which would give you, again, as I said, the feeling of a reading of fiction. And these are the stories of miracles. These are the stories of small short stories of wisdom. There are anecdotes written in the book, and it's a very good book, I think. So I would recommend this as the second winter read. I think you can complete this book just in one go. You can sit with your cup of hot chai and complete this book within a couple of hours. So this would, according to me, would make definitely a good winter read.
Thank you, Nazneen. I'm sure I'll pick up, and it sounds very interesting. What about you, Purnesh? Would you like to talk about two books?
Yes, I would like to talk about this, which is very much talking about the Himalayas. Now, this is written by Stephen Alter, who is a cousin brother of Tom Alter. So, this is a series
Yes.
of treks that he took across the Himalayan ranges. And why I love this book is in one of them, he writes there is a chapter called Entering the Mandala. And I will read out a very short, beginning from it. It says, driving across Western Tibet somewhere between Lhasa and Mount Kailash, we approach the crest of an unmarked pass. Dust turns to mud and streaks the glass. We open our windows, admitting the welcome fragrance of moist earth. I think so. This is that something which I always look for in travel books, because whenever I travel, I always carry a notepad or a diary with me, wherein I keep making notes of these things, what I see, what I feel, what I observe. And I think so. This is one of those books which actually speaks largely about that, because people go on treks, but the kind of experience that this person, Mr. Stephen Alter, has shared as far as his treks across Himalayan mountains is concerned, that's amazing. That's people should take up this book and read it if they are considering trekking in the mountains. And then coming to the other, book in the travel genre, this is The Shooting Star by Shivya Nath. She has been a blogger for a long time. And once again, in a very beautiful way, she writes, on a dark, silent night, I lay on the roof of a watchtower in the vast, barren, baked, and cracked salt desert of the little run of Kutch in Gujarat on the western edge of India. So, did you see the kind of words, how each and every word, like just few minutes back, Sudipta rightly mentioned that when you read a book, you love to, yeah, he loves to imagine things. So, I think so. I try imagining things in a way as to how quickly or how differently this author has made me imagine that particular destination. So how would I imagine it, or how would I experience it when I am at that place? So these are the two books that I recommend when someone is talking about the mountain series that we are talking about. So one is the Shooting Star and the other is a Becoming a Mountain.
Very
So it is
interesting.
the
I'm
beauty
sure
of that.
they'll be a great read for people who love traveling. Because I myself am a big traveler, and I was a travel writer before I started writing books. And I have
Okay.
enjoyed traveling through the various countries and all through the globe. And it has been always exciting to discover new places, new facets of a life there. So I'm sure that will be a very big wealth of information. Yes, Sudipta, can you tell me what are your books
First,
that you want to discuss? Sorry.
yeah, thank you, ma'am. First, I would like to recommend two books jointly. And among that, the first one would be, I had already mentioned the name of the book. That is Winter by Alice Smith, and
Yes.
the second one would be A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now, I have chosen these two books because Winter by Alice Smith is one of my favorite books till now. And I have chosen A Christmas Carol with this because for a reason that I would be telling it to you after a few moments. And but coming back to Winter by Alice Smith, here Alice Smith presents winter in two different parts. One is she presents winter as the dead time. She presents winter for the midnight hour, that whenever you see, you feel the chill of the midnight. And she presents it as the dying of the light. Okay, that means everything starts diminishing. But on the other hand, she also presents winter as the time of guests, the time of gifts, and the time of the very renowned Christmas memories. Okay, so with these two sections, Alice Smith presents a contemporary landscape of violent exclusion, lies, and suffering within a single family. Now, the protagonist of the story is an aging Sophia who begins her winter with the vision of a child's head that keeps her company. Now, if you have heard me right, yes, it is the child's head, only the head, decapitated head, that gives her the company. Now, this is the scene that would provide you the chill in your body. You will have goosebumps when you read this incident, that she is thinking, she's having the vision, that Sophia is having the vision of the decapitated child's head during the winter, at the beginning of the winter, and the child gives her the company. So here, winter provides a kind of loneliness for Sophia, as well as it begins to provide a chill in you, provide goosebumps in you, that it is a decapitated child's head. So this is in a way the name of the novel, as well as the plot gradually proceeds, and they complement each other. The second thing is why I have chosen A Christmas Carol along with Winter by Alice Smith is that Smith's references to Dickens' novel A Christmas Carol is very much prominent in Winter, because the opening line of Winter stands as God was dead, full stop, to begin with, full stop. This, if you have read Christmas Carol, or if our audiences have read Christmas Carol, they can easily identify this line to the very opening line of A Christmas Carol. That is, Marley was dead, full stop, to begin with, full stop. This, the very novel, starting with the words dead to begin with, is, we can understand, can be the perfect read, that you, if you want something chilly, something chilling, something that will give you goosebumps during the winter. And when we come to A Christmas Carol, we would already see that Dickens has described winter brutally, with the horrors of social inequality. And Dickens describes weather in very severe forms in many parts of the book. as well as the main character of A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge, is itself being presented as the embodiment of winter. That is, his coldness towards the people, his hating of the Christmas carols, his hating of the season of Christmas, the season of winter itself. So he has been presented as the very embodiment of winter. So for me, jointly, if anybody would like to start with a winter read, I would recommend that they start with either Winter by Alice Smith or A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Both of it will not disappoint you ever. I can vouch for it.
Absolutely. I think what you pointed out about A Christmas Carol, I think it was one of the rare, I don't think Charles Dickens has written any more ghost stories.
Yes,
This has
this
Marley's ghost coming and
Marley.
showing him what his future, past, and present has been like and what it will be like. And that brings the entire transformation in him. And he becomes a changed man by the morning. So that itself was a very, very interesting thing about Charles Dickens' book. And I think even that there is a book called Winter Garden by Christine Hanna, and it is a love story which is actually transcending about 65 years, and it moves from the war-torn frozen Leningrad to Alaska. So it's about, though it is romance and it is, covering 65 years span, it's a very interesting transformation of that person. And it talks about the winter, and the entire scenario is woven inside the tale. And of course, there is one collection that I really loved reading recently. That was the Midwinter Murders. That is by a collection of stories by Agatha Christie, and there are very famous stories in it. Most of them set either around Christmas, and all her sleuths are in it. There is Poirot, there is Marple, then there is the other, what is that, Mr. Pine, Parker Pine, and then there is that Tommy and Tuppence. So it's a very interesting collection, eclectic one, and it covers a vast range of stories set during the winter. Probably one can pick that up also. So Nazneen, we would like to now discuss two more from you.
Yeah. So I think at the beginning of this conversation, Purnesh mentioned about Arundhati Roy. So I have recently read Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, and I should, I must say that she's a wonderful, wonderful storyteller. Now, this book has got stories within stories. At the beginning of the book, you would feel that Anjum, who is a trans woman, is probably the protagonist of the story. But then later on, as the book progresses, there is one more audacious woman, Tilotima, that emerges, and then she captures the whole plot. And as it further proceeds, there are a few more characters, Musa, um, and a few others. So this particular book, I think it's a wonderfully written book, which has got characters and the stories that would probably stay with the readers for a very, very long time. And the beauty of this particular book, so I'll just show it to the readers, the viewers. The beauty of this lies the book lies in the fact that all these stories are somewhere so much dissociated early at the earlier stage of the book, and eventually they come out to be very, very, very well neatly plated, and everything falls in place and everything eventually makes sense. So this is also a very, very well researched book written by Arundhati, and I think it would definitely make a good winter read. This is probably the first fiction that I'm recommending so far. And my second book that I would go ahead in recommending would again be a fiction. It is The Adultery by Paulo Coelho. Now, this again is a book which has got a plot set in Switzerland. So whenever you think of Switzerland, whatever comes to our mind is the snow and the beautiful valleys and hills and everything. So this book is basically about a woman who has got a perfect life, as all of us call it. She's got a perfect husband, a perfect family, a perfect career, and she's in her mid 30s, but there is something missing in her life, and that something is she identifies as there's a missing passion in her life at this stage. And only at that particular point, a lover from her past, who is now a great politician, a big politician, who comes and steps into her life, and then the story unfolds. So I think this would also make a very good winter read. So these two are going to be my next recommendations.
Thank you, Nazneen. Yes, Purnesh, we are waiting for
Yeah,
you.
so I would, of course. So this particular recommendation comes from the cold land. So this is Ruskin Bond and his autobiography, which says "Lone Fox Dancing." So why do I actually like this book? Is there is something which he writes about writing. He says there is supposed to be something very romantic about being a writer, and some of us set out to write as if we are on the road to romance. Very often, for those who persist, it is the road to drudgery. We end up as hacks as or literary critics. I was fortunate in that I ventured into the literary world with a certain wide-eyed innocence and managed to maintain the innocence for most of my life. I think so. Ruskin Bond has been all of our favorite. Everybody says that if in case they have read or enjoyed stories, they have to be the short stories of Ruskin Bond. And I think so. This is one of those books wherein Ruskin Bond is himself and he allows you to actually open the window and peep into his life and make you understand what Ruskin Bond is all about and where did those all those stories come to his mind, including the scandal part. And next book which I would love to recommend is something which is The Grit, Gravel and Gear. Now this is written by a person called Dhruv Bhogra. So he cycled across 15,000 kilometers across 10 countries and discovered the indigenous. He always wanted to explore the indigenous cultures of the Arctic, the Maya, the Zapotec, the Aztec in Mexico and Central America, and also the world of Inca in Peru. Why these two books are very important is because these are individual journeys. These are about exploring what people wanted to people wish to explore about themselves. I think so these books not only paint a picture of what a person is all about and how determination can take you to what your objective is, but these books are also very kind of informative about how a struggle can lead to something which makes a person evolve into an identity of a nature who is talked about in major circles and who is also looked upon as inspiration. So these are the two books that I would always want to recommend as far as the winter reads are concerned. People should read this because Anderson Bond is the granddaddy of storytelling.
I agree. I agree. Ruskin Bond is a perennial favorite. I always enjoy, and I still remember the show Ekta Rusty by Didi. It was such
Yeah.
a delight, you know. So I really agree with you that he is, one of the best storytellers that we have in our country, and especially where short stories are concerned.
Right.
And coming to the short story genre, one thing I just want to point out briefly now is that I'm very impressed by O. Henry and Mufasa stories. There's something very heartwarming about them. I think everyone has read them, and The Gift of Magi, The Last Leaf, and The Romance of a Busy Broker. These are some books, stories which I think we have all read, and so is Mopasa's, The
Yes.
Necklace, A
Yes.
Piece of String. So these short stories make for a very good, short read when you don't have much time and yet you want to enjoy something really, really good and classic. Now we'll switch over to Sudipta. He's waiting for his books to be talked about.
Uh, Thank you, ma'am. My next two recommendations would be the first one is Burnt Sugar by Abu Doshi, which is also titled Girl in White Cotton. And my second recommendation would be The Snow Child by Robin Ivy. Now, when I come to Burnt Sugar, it is an intensely thoughtful novel on the love between mother and daughter. Now, I am recommending this as a winter book because winter does not come in this novel literally, but winter has a symbolic reference in this novel because this novel is specifically a very emotional read, and it is a love story. Now, basically, a love story. Firstly, I had already told you that it is a thoughtful novel between a mother and a daughter, and also I'm telling you this is a love story. And also, along with being a love story, this is a story of betrayal. Now, love between whom? Betrayal between whom? Love between two separate persons, betrayal also between two separate persons. That is a mother and a daughter. So this presents as the it presents as the coldness of winter is there in the novel in a very symbolic manner between a mother and her daughter. My second recommendation is The Snow Child by Yogan Ivy. It is a wonderful read, and it is a very unique kind of novel where it is set in 1920 Alaska. When a novel is set in 1920 Alaska, you can readily imagine that it would be a novel where there are icy ravines, where there are wild silence, and where there is snow and snow and snow all the year round. And in this novel specifically, I would like to point out that winter has been presented as a season of hope. Now, how the season of hope? There are two main characters in the novel, Jack and Mabel. So Jack and Mabel, they are they are a middle-aged couple who are childless, and they are heavy with the loss of their firstborn. And on one night, they build a child out of snow during the season's first snowfall. And the very next day, when the morning comes, they see that they see that the snow child is no longer there, and the snow child is no longer there. Instead of that, they see that a sweet child, which both the characters have desired for their rest of the life, had appeared suddenly from the woods, and it is accompanied by a dog. So this is a very intense kind of story where winter has been presented as a kind of hope to a childless couple, where a child would be presented to them by winter. And this story, The Snow Child, is actually based on a Russian folk tale. So you can imagine folk tales are often full of promises, full of promising, full of hope. And I would recommend Burnt Sugar by Agni Doshi and The Snow Child by Yoganavi. And you will not be disappointed if you read this.
Thank you, Sudipta. I think those both of those books sound very, very interesting. Of course, the first one, Avni Doshi's book, has won awards, and even this Snow Child sounds very intense kind of a book. I'm sure it is a very enjoyable one. I have a whole list of recommendations. If you see, there are hundreds and hundreds of books here, and it is impossible to cover everything in this one, session of 45 minutes. So I would just say, please don't be disappointed that the names of your books have not come up. It's just impossible for us to deal with so many of them. And of course, we get a little excited when we talk about the books that we love reading and we would like to recommend it, to readers. Anyway, I think it's been an excellent session. I thank every one of you, and I thank TMIS who has invited us for this beautiful session. I'm sure the readers would have and viewers would have also enjoyed the recommendations and then pick up those few books. Thank you so much. It was a delight to have you all with us.
Thank you,
Tanushri.
Tanushri.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having
Team
us.
Wise. And thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.